Welcome to Tenacity with Sonia C, the podcast where we dive into stories behind success, uncovering lessons learned and the insights gained by leaders and innovators in the business world. I'm your host, Sonia, and let's get started. Today's guest joining us is David Fradin. David is a luminary in the field of product management and development. His journey is remarkable, having played a role in shaping products at some of the world's most influential tech companies, including Hewlett-Packard and Apple. He has been at the forefront of product innovation since 1969, holding a position at Apple at the same management level as Steve Jobs. Whether you're a budding entrepreneur, a project manager, or just someone passionate about innovation and technology, today's episode is for you. Let's dive in. Hi, David. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
I'm excited to start our conversation. Before we get into it, can you tell our audience a little bit about you and what you do for those who don't know you?
I was born and raised in Detroit, went to the University of Michigan, started the flying club there, and as a result of that, my aerospace engineering professor asked me if I could organize a nationwide student organization in support of American supersonic transport. So not knowing what I got into, I developed 45 chapters on campuses around the country, ended up testifying before Congress and going to meetings at the White House in my pink polyester leisure suit. Then after I graduated from college engineering degree, interdisciplinary engineering, which set me up for technically trade management or product management later in my career, moved the headquarters to Washington, D.C. near DuPont Circle, lobbied Congress to get the space shuttle built. We were successful on that. Lobbied Congress to reduce our use of fossil fuels. I didn't succeed on that. I then went to Minnesota to run the Environmental Balance Association of Minnesota and pioneered the field, which later became known as environmental mediation, resolving economic, environmental, and energy disputes through the mediation process versus through litigation. From there, Hewlett-Packard hired me and moved me to California to help the company with the siting of their new facilities, since I had experience in that from the environmental issues that I had mediated, and was able to introduce the first word processing in the PR department at HP, because that was the only department at the time that knew how to type. So from that, one of the nice things about HP is you're able to move laterally. So I moved over to product management in the networks division. And since I was a HP trained product manager, Apple recruited me to bring the first hard disk drive to market, which was a cheap hard disk drive. It was only $3,500. And it was really, really, really big. It's 5 megabytes. And no one could understand how or why anybody would ever need 5 megabytes of space, especially when the floppy disks were only 143 kilobytes. They noticed I could manage, and they asked me to take over as the group product manager of the Apple III product line. And at the time, Apple had the Apple II as a profit center and the Apple III as a profit center. And Steve Jobs' Macintosh was still something that he was eyeing to maybe someday ship. But Steve, in his strange way back then, wanted to kill the Apple III and kill the Apple II so that his beloved Mac, which he's not yet shipped, would have no competition in the marketplace. He went on later to learn, after he got fired from Apple and after he had trouble with Pixar, and his next computer became his last computer, and he got some mentoring from David Packard, who was the Packard in the Hewlett-Packard, whom I had handled his personal PR for a few years earlier. And Dave convinced Steve that he needs to cannibalize his own products, not worry that much about the competition. And that's exactly what he did when he came back to Apple in the late 1990s. So he succeeded in convincing the executive committee to kill the Apple III product line without talking to me. They finally talked to me because they had a surplus of extra parts, which was a major portion of the profits for the company for that year if they had to throw it all away. And I recommended they set up the Apple III as an independent business unit, much like the Skunk Works of Lockheed, like the Soul of the New Machine from Alpha General, I think it was. And so they agreed to do that, asked me to be the independent business unit manager. They didn't want to call me the general manager, so they called me the business unit manager, or BUM for short. And we sold 22,000 Apple IIIs, made a $600 million profit, enough money to keep about 1,000 to 15 highly paid Apple employees employed for another year. And then after I shut the product line down 6 months later, Macintosh sales had dropped to 4 units. Our profits were not there. The company laid off 1,000 to 1,500 employees, and Steve Jobs lost his job about 6 months later. So I had that experience in product management, and then went on to start companies and join other companies to focus on product management. And then I started a company, my company now, Spice Catalyst, about 12 years ago, to focus on product management training and product management consulting.
So, how have all of these experiences with Apple, HP, shaped your approach to developing and growing a successful product?
I think the first thing is make sure that your company, your organization has a set of values
Okay.
and follows those values and sticks to those values. Because then when you combine that with the vision that you have for the product or the product line, which is laid out in what's called the product market strategy, that's the strategy of the product in the market, mission statement, then you've got a direction, which North Star you're going to be chasing. And that when your team gets together to make decisions about the product, you're all coming from the same set of values. So, for example, if the values are just profit no matter what, versus the values of having empathy for your customers, having good management, which are a couple of the Apple's values, then that means everybody in the room is making decisions based upon the same core. And what I found is that if you don't have an organization with values, they typically fail. When I was researching for my book, Building and Scaling Great Products, I went back to the original Fortune 500 list of 1965, of which there was obviously 500 companies there. And since I had raised money from them, from many of them for my student organization, and I knew either their presidents or their chairman of the boards, I could go down the list and check off whether they had values, whether they followed those values, and whether they're still in business today. And about 300 of those companies are no longer in business. And those are the ones almost exclusively that had no corporate values, or if they did, they didn't follow those values.
How do you know if a company it doesn't have corporate values or didn't follow their corporate values?
It'll be in their annual report, be on their webpage.
Okay.
An example of that is shortly after the scandal of Volkswagen making software to fake the emission reports from their diesel engine cars. I went to their website. They had an exquisite set of values. It's no longer there, those values, when I checked about a year ago. It ended up costing them tens of billions of dollars of failing to follow their own values, not to mention the loss of brand value of the entire organization. So the values will be their annual report or on their website. They'll talk about it. Tim Cook at Apple talks about Apple's values and how important that is to the organization. And other organizations don't talk about their values. I doubt if you find a set of values on any coal company or oil company's website, because some of them have decided to follow the values of Atlas Shrugged, which is the book that was written by, I forget her name offhand, and which says that a company has no social responsibility except to make a profit for its shareholders and pay dividends. Well, the companies that have done that have typically turned out to be those that have exploited either their employees and or the environment in order to make a profit.
Okay, so let's talk about product vision and market fit. In your books, you emphasize the importance of vision and product development. What are the key elements to consider when defining the vision for a startup specifically? And how does one ensure that it aligns with the market needs?
You have to start with understanding what your customer wants to do. I don't think you can go out and ask people, what do you want? And Steve Jobs and Henry Ford were once thought about that question. And Henry Ford went out and asked people if they wanted a car. And they said, no, I don't want a car. And if he had just sat down on the stoop of a bar in Dearborn, Michigan, not far from where I grew up, he would have noticed a few people swatting their horses to go faster to get them from point A to point B faster. People at that time did not know what a car was. So they, even if they had the internet, they wouldn't bother searching for cars because they didn't even know the word car at the time. So he asked them, what did you want? And they said, I want a faster horse.
Mhm.
Uh, through observing what it is that your customer wants to do, how they want to do it, when do they want to do it, where do they want to do it, why do they want to do it, what's standing in their way, and how important it is to get the thing that they want to do done. That combined tells you what the features should be for the product or the service that you're proposing to develop. Then, as far as a startup is concerned, you have to ascertain whether or not there is a market there. And I'm not talking about marketing. The market is where you go to get something, like a grocery store. Marketing is the activities to get people to go to the grocery store and buy that particular product.
Mhm.
So, with a concept of what the market is, which is an amalgamation of the demographics and characteristics of your target customers, if there's enough of them there, and if you could reach them, then that tells you what your total available market is, and begins to tell you what it will cost in order to do the marketing for that customer base. With all that in hand, then you're going to have a successful startup.
Mhm. So, what advice would you have for a lot of our listeners are obviously entrepreneurs, founders who want to learn from the people who have been there and done it. So, my goal is to bring practical advice to sort of help them learn from those who have failed and succeeded so that they hopefully won't make the same mistakes. One common thing that I see in the startup space, whether it be products, tech, whatever it may be, but particularly in tech, you get these founders that are really inventors, and they invent something that they think there's a need for just because they're like, oh, I've never seen this before. I think this is a genius idea. I'm gonna build it. And then they start spending money building it, and then they get to a certain point where they're stuck in either the product development, because one of the things they don't do very well is assess the market, look at their competitors, put together a marketing plan, a sales team, do all the marketing analysis. They're just in the building phase. Build, build, build. Oh, I want to build this feature. And they never really stop building a minimal viable product, which a minimal viable product means build minimum, get to market so you can learn, but they're always pivoting and building. So when it comes to that aspect of it, and you're talking about being, having values and all the stuff you're telling us, what advice would you give to a founder that has a great idea but hasn't done all of those other things that you're telling us about? What How should their thought process be, and how should they go about it if they have a great idea?
Well, first they should stop development until they've put together their product market strategy. Otherwise, they've got somewhere between a 35 to 75% chance of failure, which means all the money, time, and effort they put into it, they're going to lose for sure. And
Yeah.
I've tried to consult with several startup entrepreneurs, and they tend to be fairly arrogant and tend to think they know everything. And quickly out of business, and you never heard from them since. Uh, so you need to stop what you're doing. You need to think about what it is that your customer wants to do, and the things I mentioned earlier: when they want to do it, why they want to do it, how they want to do it, and validate that first by going out into the market and observing what people do,
Hmm.
like in terms of Henry Ford and the horse and what people were trying to do with their horses, and then based upon that put together an interview set of questions and interview 40 to 80, 90 people or 40 to 80 companies if your business is going to be business to business. And based upon that, you could then refine your survey questions and go out and survey a representative sample of the total market that you're focusing on. And if you do that random sample surveying and offer a reward to the people that respond to your survey, once you get up to a minimum, say 400, better 800, maybe more like 1,200 survey responses. If you get up to 1,200, then your response questions will be within plus or minus 4%. You could then project that across the total market, and that can tell you what your potential sales and revenue might be, which you can, and profits, and that you then compare to your cost of development. And if that turns out to be a good return on investment, then go ahead and spend the money on the development. If it turns out not, then go find something different problem to pursue.
For those listeners that have already started on the process of developing, and they haven't done that yet, and now they launch and they realize that they now have competitors, and when they started they didn't, and their competitors have beat them to market, and their competitors are doing exactly everything they have now built plus more. What advice would you have for those founders that are now launching and realizing that their competitors have beat them to market, have beat them in features? They either have to pivot or stop, or figure out a new, I don't know, figure something out. What advice would you give them on that aspect of it? Because I do find that happens quite a bit because they take so long getting the minimal viable product to market.
2 points on that. One is frequently you compare your product's set of features at the time of development, beginning of development, to the product features of your competitors that are out there. And forget, you have to redo that competitive analysis at the time of product introduction, which of course is what a target customer is going to be doing. They'll be comparing one solution to another solution. Second, if you have or have developed a series of answers to the who, what, when, where, why in terms of what it is that your customer wants to do, you will identify and uncover problems that people or organizations have that your competitors probably have not uncovered because they haven't done that work. And with those new features, which people tell you they really want to do, that then gives you what we call here in Silicon Valley a unfair competitive advantage, and you could then begin to exploit that.
That's interesting. I have a product that we've taken to market, and I make a point as the founder of that product to always be in as many sales meetings as I can, because I always tell my team those potential clients that we're talking to, we can get a lot of information from them. And we actually, for one of our products that's now in market, we have, we're selling it globally. I recently launched what I call the customer board, which I thought, instead of going out and doing all this market research, we're having these conversations with existing clients all the time. They're telling us what they love about our product, what they wish they could see it. So I'm like, instead of getting an advisory board, why don't I just create a board for our customers so that they can help us build out the product, right? So I think there's a couple of strategies. Even if you have a product in market, you can even utilize your existing clients or the potential clients that you're talking to get the feedback, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I did a product management consulting for a supply chain automation software company. And I went out and interviewed 200 of their customers and asked them, what is it that you would like this product to be able to do for you in the future? And which features are you currently using now? And where are you in the market? And I found that the product is used extensively in manufacturing, but the bigger market was management, knowing what's going on in their supply chain. So
Right.
they were able to develop a whole series of products focused on giving management a dashboard and a view into what's happening in the supply chain.
That's a good point. I like that. So let's talk about scaling strategies. What are some of the most effective strategies for scaling a company? How do you balance the need for rapid growth with maintaining product quality and customer satisfaction?
Well, you must not overextend yourself and
Okay.
have to find yourself where you don't have the resources to provide the support and service, for example,
Mhm.
that the product needs. I just bought a full mouth of flossing, a water pick kind of device, and they have me go to a dentist and get a 3D scan of my mouth so that all the jets of this mouthpiece that they manufacture uh, will do an effective job on all of my teeth. The product sells for about $800. Well,
Oh,
I went in for the scan last week at the dental doctor's office, but I won't get my product to the end of February. So
oh,
that's 5 or 6 weeks after I bought it. So that kind of is going to quash the impulse buy in the future for that company. And they're running major ads like the New York Times, the Washington Post, and so forth. And they put a cookie in my browser. So pretty much any website I go to, that same product pops up as something being advertised.
mhm.
So don't overextend yourself. If you focus on customer satisfaction first, like that's what Apple does, then you have customers that are very satisfied and remain loyal, and they buy your next product and your next product and your next product. If you don't, if you insult them for the glory of being able to grow fast, then your customer base will erode. And if your competitor comes along and offers better service, they'll snatch you away from them.
Yeah. So this question is actually kind of personal even for me because I find myself at this point now. What happens when you grow a company to a certain point and then you hit a plateau? You've done all the marketing that you can. So I have a couple of SaaS products, and this one that I'm talking about happens to be a SaaS product, and it's hit a plateau. We have hundreds of customers, but now I want to go from where we are to, you know, more doubling the growth. What is your advice to companies that, have grown, they have, reached their revenue targets, they're doing really well, but now they want to grow even further to hit new revenue uh, goals?
There's several strategies you can follow. One is do product line extensions so that you have a higher end product and or a lower end product or both. Another is to add features, which is based upon your understanding what your customer wants to do research. Another way to do it is with the product line extension, drop the price of the current product and increase the price on the product line extension, which has greater features and greater capabilities. Uh, Also analyze where your marketing dollars are going and
Mm,
optimize as to your spend there and optimize using A/B testing your marketing messages in order to attract the appropriate customers. Another strategy would be to pick an adjacent market, like in my example earlier,
okay.
uh, you're in manufacturing, and an adjacent market would be management, or an adjacent market would be engineering.
Right. Okay, I like that. That's good advice. So, with the market being so saturated in marketing wise, like there's social media, there's SEO, there's, the typical marketing stuff. And I feel like certain companies sort of just do the same thing over and over and over again. And I'm constantly telling my marketing team, guys, like I need you to be creative. We need to come up with new innovative ways to market ourselves. What advice do you have for even somebody like me who's at that point? They're doing all the basic marketing things, a website, SEO, Google paid ads, backlinks and all that stuff. What can a company do outside of those normal things to, get their branding out and extend their market?
Well, go back to understanding your customer's profile. Understand by interviewing them, and that in that interview step, and also in your surveys, uh, Ask them where they get their information from. What websites do they go to? What search words do they use to search for whatever they're looking for? Excuse me. What conferences they go to? That type of thing.
Okay, yeah, that's good. I like that. Let's talk a little bit about team building and leadership, which I think is an important point. In your view, what are the key characteristics of a successful team? How does leadership play a role in fostering innovation and driving product growth?
I think that goes again back to the values of the organization. And the primary role of the leader is to take care of their team members.
Mm-hmm.
When anybody comes to work for me, I tell them three things: do the best job that you can. It's okay to make a mistake and fail, because most of us learn better through our failures rather than through our successes, which was one of the values at Hewlett Packard, and one of the reasons that they grew 20% a year every year for 50 years. And the third is let me know where you'd like to be in 5 or 10 years, and it's my job to help you get there. And that could be still working for me, or going off and doing something else. I'll try to help you out. I had an employee back in the 90s when I had a desktop video company selling video editors to post-production studios in the San Francisco Bay Area. And one of the guys, Tony Montanino, came to work for me, and I took him out on sales calls. And a few years later, he was the district manager for Liberty Mutual Insurance Company with dozens of agents working for him. And he moved to Arizona, and I went down there to the spring training and had dinner with him. And he said to me that he wanted to thank me because he learned more from me than anybody else in terms of how to sell. So that's the key: is take care of your people, and your people will take care of you.
The other day I was listening to a podcast, and this lady was saying that if the generation that's going into the workforce now, she's advising people that if you want to grow and make more money, do not stay in a company for more than 2 years. Each job that you get, stay for a year and a half, 2 years, and move on. Because if you work at a company for 10, 15, 20 years, you will make 50% less than the person who jumps every 2 years. What's your take on that?
Well, in my career, every time I changed jobs, I got about a 40% increase in pay.
Right.
But again, this goes back to values. When I was writing my book, Building and Selling Great Products, I told you the story about the Fortune 500 and values. I said, I wonder if that applies to me and my career.
Mm-hmm.
So I made a list of the 25 organizations I've been affiliated with in one way or another throughout my career. And these are for-profit companies like Apple and HP and DataQuest and others, and also some of the nonprofits that I was involved in, my flying club, which I started with a set of values and a mission statement, and it's still going today, 55 years later. And I made three columns. One column was, did they have values? Second column was, did they follow those values? And the third column is, did those companies' values map it to mine?
Mm-hmm.
Without exception, those that did not have values, did not follow or did not follow them, and or did not map it to mine, I either got fired or I quit. And if they fired me, it was like a mercy killing. I was happy the next day. And those organizations that I stayed with, or those organizations, I should say, that I was with, that had values and mapped it to my values, like at HP and at Apple, I thrived, and I was very, very happy. So I would say a matching of values is a much more important indicator than the almighty dollar. With
Right.
one of the things, again, going back to the Ayn Rand Atlas Shrugged philosophy, where profits are the only important thing and not your employees, there's a tendency of companies that are that way to not care about their employees. In fact, if you take a look at a balance sheet under the Sloan accounting principles, Sloan was the former president of General Motors at the beginning of the 1900s, and he put together this thing called a balance sheet. And they have on their assets as inventory, and liabilities as employees. And of course, everybody in Wall Street has gone through MBA school and learned the same thing. At
Mm,
Apple, it was the other way around.
yeah.
Excuse me, at Hewlett Packard, it was the other way around. The employees were an asset, and we were treated as such. And the inventory was a liability. So it was HP that taught Japan just-in-time manufacturing, which is now developed into agile software development to
Mhm.
keep your supply chains short, keep your inventories low. And of course, the American automotive industry in 2008, with the Great Recession having 18 million cars in their parking lots and in the dealers' parking lots, could not turn that asset into cash, and that asset turned into a liability. So
Right.
take those kinds of considerations into effect, and you'll have a more successful company.
So let's talk about hiring. If you're looking to hire for your company for a specific role, let's say it's a management role. If you look at somebody's resume and you see that they've been at a company for 2 years, and in the last 8 years, they've been in all different companies for a period of 1.5, 2 years, and they've always been, junior and sort of grew into intermediate, and now they're applying for a management role. Do you think that 2 years in a role is enough to gain experience to be a manager? Because a management role requires, it's not just about doing the job and knowing how to do the job. There's also things like managing people, HR, HR things, and reporting and things like that. What do you say about that?
Well, management is the function of planning, organizing, directing, coordinating, and controlling.
Hmm.
Look, if they want to be a manager, what has been their training and their experience in each of those areas? And also, I would probe them in terms of their values and how their values map into my organization's values and my values.
Hmm.
And if they do not, then I would tell the fellow or gal to go find something else to do, but we're not going to hire them.
Yeah, I find that in this conversation, at the end of it, everything that I asked you and what we talked about always came down to values. So as we wrap up, I'm going to ask you one last question. Looking forward to the future, what emerging trends do you believe will significantly impact the tech industry, and what challenges should new startups prepare for, and how they can navigate these successfully?
It's about 15 or 16 major things that I call the perfect storm.
Okay.
Uh, Wars, like in Ukraine and the Middle East, in China and Taiwan, could and will have significant effects. I think they said the defense industry in Europe is not twice what it was before the Ukrainian war. So there's lots of opportunities there, particularly in the area of robotics and drone technologies. Um, Pandemics, which is something I didn't have on my list before the pandemic. We are all set up for another big pandemic. For example, we have found, and I noticed this early on in the COVID pandemic, that ultraviolet light will kill the COVID virus. And some companies are just beginning to come out with some ultraviolet light at a frequency which you cannot see, that you could install in large indoor arenas, and it will kill the virus very quickly and stop its spread. So there's all sorts of opportunities there. We saw the technology of gene splicing and its impact on the development of the COVID vaccines, that type of an area. Climate change, supply chain integrity. Look at the effect of 10% of the world shipping in the Suez Canal from the Houthis firing missiles at tanker ships trying to transit the Red Sea. Those are just a few things that will affect the future. Artificial intelligence is another huge area which will have impacts. I gave a talk at the International Software Product Management Association's first conference in the United States at University of California, Berkeley, back in September. And I identified a couple dozen areas in the field of product management where artificial intelligence is going to change that job and make that job even more effective than it has been in the past.
I feel like a lot of startups, the product manager is the project manager, is the salesperson. They're sort of doing a little bit of everything and they're involved in everything. It's a really hard role to manage.
It is. They're being pulled in all sorts of directions. And I have an article in my blog on my website, spicecatalyst.com, about the very first product manager was probably Leonardo da Vinci, because he did pretty much everything. He was a
That's a
great
good point.
visionary. He was an architect. He was a draftsman. He was a scientist. He was an engineer. All of those kinds of things. The important thing is that the product manager focuses on the product market strategy and hires other people to do the rest of the keys to product success. He or she should then have an assistant that does the marketing, the product marketing, which
Right.
then gives what is necessary, like what are the personas that the marketing department should be targeting, what's the pricing strategy, what the advertising mix should be, what the PR plan should be. The product marketing person puts that together at the direction of the product manager.
Great. I like that. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. This is very educational. I even got a lot out of it that I'm going to start applying to my SaaS product. Is there anything that you would like to leave our audience with?
If you want to learn more, if you want to get some of my training, go to my website, spicecatalyst.com. Many of my courses are delivered in person over WebEx or Zoom worldwide. I have professors here in the United States and in India that teach all around the world in addition to myself. And there's also, we do consulting with companies to help them do their product market strategy, their marketing plans, and so forth. And feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn so we can stay in touch.
Awesome. Thank you so much, David. I appreciate your time today.
Glad to be with you.
And that's a wrap. I want to thank David for joining us today. His expertise and experience have not only shaped the products we use daily, but have also inspired a new generation of product managers and innovators. To our listeners, thank you for joining me on this journey of discovery and inspiration. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast on your favorite platform and join our community on social media. I would love to hear from you. Leave a review and tell me what topics you'd like me to explore in future episodes. Remember, the future belongs to those who embrace change and innovation with tenacity. Keep striving, keep innovating, and most importantly, stay tenacious in your pursuits. Thank you for tuning in. I look forward to bringing you more inspiring conversations in our upcoming episodes. This is Sonia signing off, but as always, remember to chase your dreams with tenacity.